The lights were dim. Strange music played in the background. The air smelled like metal and oil. Daniel stood at the back of the underground auction hall, leaning against a wall. He didn't like places like this, but he needed something special. Something he could sell for a high price. He was a salvager from Earth. Most of the time he picked up scrap from old space wrecks. But this time he was low on credits. So when someone whispered about a secret auction on Xerion Station, Daniel came. The auctioneer was a tall alien with a metal mask. He spoke loudly, pointing to strange items placed in shining glass boxes. Item the Burner 412, telepathic fish from Bexa 9. Starting bid, 3,000 credits. The crowd shouted their bids. Rich aliens in long robes, tall insect-like traders, and even a few humans raised their paddles. Daniel waited quietly. None of it was worth his time. Then, the auctioneer's voice changed. Next item is very rare. Item bar 438. Organic, alive, extremely valuable. Starting bid, 10,000 credits. A metal container rolled out, covered in wires and blinking lights. The box shook lightly, like something inside was moving. But it had no glass. No one could see what was inside. Daniel frowned. Is it a creature? A pet? Next to him, an alien with 3 eyes whispered, "They say it's from the Forbidden Zone. Maybe a weapon. Maybe a living AI." Daniel felt curious. If it was something alive and rare, he could sell it later. Maybe even double his credits. He raised his paddle. 10,000, another bidder shouted. 11. Daniel didn't blink. 15. The other bidders fell silent. It was too risky. No one knew what was inside. But Daniel had a feeling. Something told him this would be worth it. Sold, to the human in the back. The auctioneer smiled behind his mask. Guards rolled the container toward Daniel. The crowd moved aside. Whispers filled the room. One guard pressed a button. The container hissed. Steam escaped. The door slowly opened, and then everyone froze. Inside the container was a girl. Not just any girl. She had smooth, glowing purple skin. Her long silver hair fell over her shoulders like a waterfall. Her eyes were big and glowing green. She looked weak, tired, and scared. Chains were wrapped around her wrists and ankles. Her dress was torn, and her body had small bruises. She looked up, and her eyes locked with Daniel's. "Please," she whispered, "not again." Daniel felt his chest tighten. He stepped forward. "What is this? This isn't an object," the auctioneer laughed. "She was grown in a lab, designed to obey. Perfect condition. You own her now." Daniel clenched his fists. He looked around. The crowd didn't care. Some even looked jealous. "She's not a thing," Daniel said. But no one listened. The girl looked down. Her hands trembled. Daniel took a deep breath. His heart raced. He didn't come here to save anyone. He just wanted something to sell. But now, everything felt different. One of the guards moved closer. "You want her delivered to your ship, or do you want her cleaned first?" Daniel stared at the guard, then looked back at the girl. Her eyes were begging him to do something. "Let her go," he said quietly. The guard laughed. "She's yours, human. Do what you want." I said, "Let her go." The guard reached for a weapon. "Don't be stupid," but Daniel was already moving. He punched the guard hard in the face. The alien dropped. Another guard shouted, pulling out a blaster. Daniel grabbed the girl's hand. "Run!" They dashed through the crowd. Blaster shots fired behind them. Screams filled the hall. Daniel pulled the girl through a side door. They ran down a dark hallway, then into a tunnel that led to the docking bay. The girl was breathing fast. She couldn't keep up. Daniel lifted her into his arms and kept running. Finally, they reached his ship, the Emberhawk. He slammed the door shut and yelled, "Take off now!" The ship's AI responded. "Understood, Captain. Launching sequence initiated." As the ship lifted into space, Daniel placed the girl gently on a chair. She looked at him with tired, grateful eyes. "You're safe now," he said. But the girl shook her head. "No," she whispered. "You don't understand. You're not safe." They'll come for me. They always come. Daniel stared at her, confused and worried. What are you? The girl closed her eyes and whispered just one word. Liari. Daniel didn't wait for answers. The alien girl, Liari, was still breathing hard, her body weak from being locked up. Her wrists were red where the chains had been, but her eyes, glowing green, were wide with fear. Not fear of him, fear of what might come next. The Emberhawk's engines roared as the ship took off. Daniel glanced at the screen. No ships were following yet. That wouldn't last long. He turned to Liari. We need to get out of range before they track us. She sat curled in the corner of the ship's small lounge. She looked fragile, almost too perfect, like a painting or a doll. But there was something sharp hidden under that beauty, something powerful. Daniel stepped closer. Can you walk? She nodded slowly, then stood. Her legs shook a little. Daniel held out a protein bar and a blanket. Eat. You'll feel better. She took the bar but didn't eat. Instead, she stared out the window. You don't know what you've done. Daniel frowned. I saved you. She turned. No. You claimed me. That's not the same. Daniel sat across from her. Look, I didn't know what was inside that box. I thought I was buying a pet, maybe something rare, something to resell, but I'm not that kind of man. When I saw you, I believed you, she interrupted softly. But now they'll chase you. Who? He asked. Liari looked straight into his eyes. The ones who made me. Daniel felt his stomach turn. He opened the ship's comms. AI, scan the auction hall. Are we being tracked? The robotic voice answered. Unusual activity detected. 2 ships launched with illegal cloaking signals. Estimate, pursuit in under 6 minutes. Daniel cursed under his breath. They're coming already, Liari whispered. They won't stop. Daniel stood up fast. Then we won't stay still. He rushed to the cockpit. The Emberhawk was fast, one of the fastest ships he'd ever worked on. But outrunning enemies with cloaking tech? That was a different game. He punched in random jump coordinates, zigzagging through asteroid fields and silent zones. Behind them, 2 red dots blinked on the radar, closer every second. He called back to Liari, strap in, it's going to be a rough ride. The ship shook as it dove through the rings of a gas giant, debris bouncing off the hull. Sparks flew from a side panel. Warning, said the AI. Hull integrity at 82%. Daniel gritted his teeth. Just hold together, girl. Suddenly a blast hit them from behind. The lights flickered. A siren wailed. They're firing now, he shouted. In the lounge, Liari stood up slowly. Her eyes glowed brighter than before. I can help, she said. Daniel looked at her through the cockpit screen. How? She placed her hands on the wall. Strange lines of light traveled from her fingers across the metal, like glowing vines. The ship hummed. Then, a burst of energy surged through the engines. The Emberhawk shot forward like a comet. The red dots on the radar faded, lost in the explosion of speed. Daniel stared in shock. What? Did you do? Liari fell to her knees. Only once. I can only do that once. Now they'll know I'm alive. Daniel ran to her. You need rest, but Liari looked up with wild eyes. No, you need to listen. He froze. They didn't just make me pretty. They made me powerful. I'm not the only one. They made dozens like me, but most were destroyed. Daniel felt a chill in his spine. You're saying you're a weapon? Liari shook her head. I'm saying I'm a secret, and the people who sold me today were not supposed to have me. That auction, it was illegal even by black market standards. Daniel sat beside her, breathing heavily. Then why sell you at all? She looked at him like it was obvious. Because someone wanted me to be found. The silence in the room grew heavier. Then the AI interrupted. Incoming message from unknown source. Text only, no origin trace. Daniel opened it. You took her. Now you'll burn with her. Zorak, He turned to Liari. Who's Zorak? Her face went pale. That was my creator. The Emberhawk drifted quietly through deep space. Its engines were silent now, cooled from the overburn Liari had triggered. Inside, the ship was calm, but Daniel could feel the storm building. He stood near the medbay, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the girl lying on the cot. Liari wasn't just an alien girl. She wasn't even just a weapon. She was something impossible. She was still weak. Her silver hair spread across the pillow like liquid light. Her glowing green eyes were closed, but her body twitched now and then, like it was remembering pain. Daniel replayed the message again. You took her. Now you'll burn with her. Zorak. He had heard of that name once, whispered in a pirate bar. Zorak was not a man. Not anymore. They said he built life in a lab and then killed it for fun. And now Zorak wanted Liari back. Why? Daniel muttered to himself. Suddenly, Liari's voice spoke, soft but clear. Because I wasn't supposed to survive. Daniel stepped closer. You're awake. She opened her eyes. I remember everything. They erased the memories of the others, but not mine. Daniel sat at the edge of the bed. The others? She nodded slowly. They made us to be perfect companions, beautiful, obedient, and easy to sell to rich monsters. But I was different. I learned too fast. I started asking questions. So Zorak ordered me destroyed. Daniel frowned. Then how did you end up in that auction box? Liari sat up, wrapping the blanket around herself. One of his scientists smuggled me out. He believed I didn't deserve to die. He tried to send me far away, but the traffickers caught us. They killed him and sold me. Her hands trembled. I stayed quiet for months, hoping someone would come. Then you did. Daniel leaned forward. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I didn't trust you, she said. Humans can be worse than aliens. But you didn't look at me like they did. There was a silence between them. Heavy, but not uncomfortable. Then Liari whispered, You should leave me somewhere. Zorak won't stop. He'll burn planets to find me. Daniel stood and shook his head. Not gonna happen. I don't leave people behind. She blinked at him. Even if it gets you killed? Daniel gave a small grin. Especially then. Suddenly, the ship lights flickered. AI report, he shouted. The ship replied, A stealth probe just passed within scanner range. Transmitting signal, encrypted tracking. They know your location, Daniel cursed. We need to move. But Liari stood up fast. No, wait, I can sense something. That probe wasn't just tracking. She reached out, her hands glowing faintly. A strange pulse echoed through the ship's walls like she was feeling the ship itself. Then her eyes widened. It was scanning for my DNA. Daniel raised an eyebrow. You can feel that? I'm linked to machines. It's part of how they made us so we could serve better. She said the last part like poison. Daniel frowned. Is there more you're not telling me? Liari hesitated, then nodded. Zorak used human DNA to build us, but not just any human. He used ancient DNA, from a lost Earth probe that crashed on his planet centuries ago. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. You're saying you're part human? Liari nodded. And that's why I survived. The others couldn't handle emotion, rebellion, fear. But the human part of me fought back. Daniel stared at her for a moment. You're not a thing, Liari. You're a person. And I think you're more human than most people I've met. Her lips curled into a soft smile. Then the AI interrupted again. Alert. 5 ships just dropped from warp behind us. No transponder codes. They are locking weapons. Daniel snapped into action. Get to the weapons bay. But Liari grabbed his arm. No, I'll talk to them. He looked at her like she was mad. Talk? They're here to kill you. She stepped closer, her eyes glowing like fire. Then, let them see what I really am. The space outside the Emberhawk was no longer quiet. 5 ships, dark, silent, deadly, appeared like ghosts behind Daniel's vessel. No names, no hails, just weapons locking on. Inside the cockpit, red warning. Lights flashed across the controls. The ship's AI spoke calmly, too calmly for the panic Daniel felt. Enemy ships are closing in. Estimated contact. 90 seconds. Daniel cursed under his breath. They really want her back. He turned to Liari. She was standing by the window, staring into the dark void where the bounty hunters waited. Her silver hair glowed under the emergency lights. Daniel walked over. You said you'd talk to them. What did you mean? Liari didn't turn. They're not just bounty hunters. They're his private army. Clones. Half machine, half organic. They're loyal to Zorak, because they don't know anything else. Daniel raised a brow. How do you know all that? She looked at him now. Because I was made in the same lab. I remember them. Daniel stared at her. Then we don't stand a chance. Liari took a deep breath. Unless I give them what they want. No, Daniel said quickly. Not happening. Liari stepped closer to the main console. Listen, they're not here for you. If I go out there, I can distract them. You can jump away. Daniel slammed his fist on the wall. Do you think I'm the kind of man who lets someone walk out the airlock to save his own skin? She blinked. You'd die for me? Daniel didn't hesitate. If that's what it takes. The ship shook. A warning siren blared. They're trying to jam our engines, the AI reported. Warp drive failing. Daniel sprinted to the manual override while Liari pressed her hand to the ship's hull again. Her fingers glowed. Sparks lit up across the console. Liari, what are you doing? He shouted. She gritted her teeth. Linking to the systems. I can push one of them away, maybe buy us time, but it'll drain you again. She looked at him, her eyes sad. It's okay. You were the only one who saw me as more than a product. The moment felt heavy, but short. Outside, the lead enemy ship fired. A blast rocked the Emberhawk. The shields cracked. Panels fell from the ceiling. The lights flickered. Then something strange happened. Liari stepped forward. Her body lit up. Bright veins of silver light pulsing under her skin. She raised her arms and the light flowed into the ship's structure. Liari? Daniel asked, stunned. Her voice changed. It echoed not just in the room, but through the ship. System override, engaging internal energy weapon. Daniel had never heard of it. Then he saw it. A thin beam of light shot out from the hull of the Emberhawk, straight at one of the enemy ships. It sliced through the armor like paper. The enemy ship exploded in silence. The other 4 ships pulled back, but it wasn't over. The screen lit up with a live feed. A cold face appeared, pale skin, metal jaw, and glowing red eyes. Zorak, you've grown stronger than expected, he said, staring directly at Liari. But you're still mine. Daniel stepped in front of the screen. She's not property, Zorak laughed. She's not even real. Liari spoke from behind Daniel. Maybe I'm not real to you, but to him, I am. Zorak's eyes narrowed. Then he'll die with you. The screen went black. More ships warped in. The Emberhawk was surrounded. Daniel turned to Liari. Got any more tricks? She shook her head, eyes dimming. That was everything. Daniel stared at the nav screen. Only one option left. Gravity slingshot around the nearby gas giant. It was dangerous. It could rip the ship apart. But it could also send them flying out of enemy range. He looked at Liari. Can you trust me now? She nodded slowly. With everything. Daniel grabbed the controls. Then hold on. The Emberhawk roared to life again, diving toward the gas giant. The enemy ships followed, but they were slower. The heat rose. Panels sparked. The ship creaked. But then, silence. Stars returned. They had made it through. Daniel exhaled. We're alive. Liari collapsed into his arms, barely conscious. He's not done. Zorak won't stop. Daniel held her close. Neither will I. Daniel stared out the front window of the Emberhawk as it floated in a quiet corner of space, far from trade routes hidden in the shadows of a dead moon. The stars blinked in silence, and for the first time in hours, there were no warning lights, no sirens, no enemies chasing them. But peace felt temporary. Behind him, Liari rested on the medbay table. Her glow had faded. Her breathing was shallow. She hadn't spoken since the escape. Daniel sat beside her and gently brushed a strand of silver hair from her face. "I need answers, Liari," he whispered. "Who or what are you really?" Her eyes slowly opened. "You wouldn't believe me. Try me." She took a deep breath. "I'm not just part human, Daniel. I carry something old inside me, something Zorak found and never understood." Daniel leaned closer. "Go on." Liari sat up slowly, holding her side. Thousands of years ago, a human exploration probe crashed on his planet. The data inside it had something unusual: genetic markers, patterns no one had seen before. "Ancient Earth tech?" Daniel asked. Liari nodded. "But not just tech. The probe carried DNA samples from Earth's greatest minds. Scientists, explorers, warriors, people who were meant to represent humanity's best. Zorak used them to build us." Daniel's eyes widened. "You were created from the DNA of Earth's heroes?" "Yes, but something went wrong. I wasn't like the others. I didn't obey. I asked questions. I wanted to be me." Her voice shook. "So he called me a failure." Daniel clenched his jaw. "You're not a failure. You're more human than anyone I've met." Liari smiled weakly. "He was afraid of me, Daniel, because deep inside me is something that even he couldn't erase." Daniel looked confused. "What is it?" Liari placed a hand over her heart. "Memory." He leaned in. "Memory of what?" She closed her eyes. "Of things that never happened to me, but feel like they did. I remember standing on Earth, on green fields, by oceans. I remember laughter, love, war, sacrifice. I remember being human, even though I've never been there." Daniel's voice was soft. "Echoes from the DNA?" She nodded. "I'm not just built from them. I carry them, their stories, their pain, their hope. And I think that's why Zorak couldn't control me, because he created something with a soul." Silence filled the room. Daniel finally asked, "So what does he want now?" Liari's voice dropped. "He wants to extract it. The memories, the code, everything inside me. He thinks he can use it to create a new army, one that's powerful but still loyal. And if he gets you," Daniel began. "He'll rewrite the future," Liari finished. Daniel stood, pacing. "Then we stop him." Liari looked down. "We can't. Not alone. His fortress is hidden, protected by black hole mines, AI defenses, and worse things I can't even describe." Daniel looked at the star map. "There must be a way." She shook her head. "Even if we got in, I wouldn't survive what he'd do to me." Daniel walked back to her. "Then we go in, not to hand you over, but to finish this." Liari's eyes searched his face. "You'd attack Zorak's fortress for me? For everyone like you?" Daniel said. "You weren't the only one he created, but you can be the last." She stood slowly. Her strength was returning. "There's something else. A hidden key. A kill code buried in the data he used to make me. If we can unlock it, it could shut down everything he's built." Daniel raised a brow. "Where is it?" "In me," she whispered. "But it's locked behind something I'm afraid to face." "What?" She looked out the window, her reflection glowing in the glass. "A memory that's not mine, but feels like a nightmare. I think it belongs to a human warrior who died in a great war. His last moment was so full of pain. It's buried deep. Daniel stepped beside her. Then I'll help you find it. She turned to him. You might not like what you see. He smiled gently. You've already seen the worst of me, Liari. I think it's my turn. The Emberhawk drifted silently above a dying red star. The light outside flickered like a candle ready to go out. Perfect cover for what Daniel and Liari were about to do. They were no longer running. They were hunting. Daniel stood near the tactical console, adjusting coordinates. His eyes were focused, sharper than before. Liari sat nearby, wrapped in thought, her silver hair tied back. Her hands were still glowing faintly, a soft light that pulsed with life. Are you sure you're ready? Daniel asked without turning. Liari nodded. The memory unlocked last night. The kill code is real, but it's hidden in a fragment. I need to be close to Zorak's main core to activate it. Daniel turned to her. Then we go to him, but we're not knocking on his front door, she smiled softly. No, we're breaking through the back. They had a plan, a wild one. Zorak's fortress was hidden inside a derelict moon, surrounded by black hole mines and cloaked AI drones. But Daniel had scavenger tricks, and Liari had the one thing Zorak never expected: conscious will. The Emberhawk descended into the shadow side of the moon, passing through an ancient ventilation shaft too small for most ships. The AI guided them through. Multiple signatures detected, the AI said. Fortress proximity, 200 meters. Daniel tightened his grip on the controls. Time to be ghosts. They docked the ship in a forgotten hangar filled with rusted drones and wreckage. The place smelled like burned wires and acid. No guards, no lights, just silence. But Liari's breath quickened. He's here, she said, her voice shaking. I can feel him. Daniel handed her a small EMP pulse device. Stick close. They moved through cold metal halls, passing through security blind spots. Daniel had studied Zorak's fortress from black market scans. Liari led them through paths only she could sense, connected to the systems through her blood, her code. They reached the core room, a giant chamber glowing red filled with suspended tanks of failed creations, some half-formed, some twisted, some still breathing. Liari froze. These were my sisters. Daniel stared in horror. He kept them alive? She touched one of the tanks, tears in her eyes. They scream in silence. He took their minds but left their bodies. Then a voice echoed through the chamber. I see you made it, Liari. Daniel spun around, blaster ready. From above, Zorak descended, not alone but fused with armor, wires crawling from his back like metal tentacles. His face was half machine now, cold and unreadable. You brought a human, Zorak said with a smirk. Fitting, you were always too soft. Daniel stepped forward. Let her go. This ends now. Zorak laughed. Let her go? She belongs to me. Liari stepped between them. Not anymore. Zorak raised a hand and drones dropped from the ceiling, aiming weapons. But Liari didn't flinch. Her body lit up, every nerve glowing, her eyes brighter than stars. Daniel tossed her the pulse device. Do it. Liari caught it and slammed it into the floor. A shockwave burst through the room. Lights shattered. Drones sparked and dropped. Zorak's armor flickered, but he laughed. You think a little pulse will stop me? I'm not stopping you, Liari said, raising both hands. I'm unlocking me. Her chest pulsed once, then twice. A wave of energy flowed outward, like a breath of ancient memory. Visions filled the chamber. Earth forests, oceans, cities, wars, families. Daniel saw it all, through her. Zorak stumbled. No, this data was mine. Mine! Liari stepped forward, now surrounded by ghostly images, human ancestors looking on. You built me in a cage, she whispered. But you used human blood and we don't stay in cages. Then she reached the core panel and placed her palm against it. The fortress screamed, not with sound, but with light. Systems failed. Tanks shattered. The clones stopped moving. blinking like they'd just woken from a bad dream. Zorak lunged toward her, but Daniel tackled him, slamming him into a console. "You lose," Daniel said through gritted teeth. Zorak hissed, sparks flying from his damaged body. "I'll rebuild everything." Layari stepped over him. Her voice was calm. "No, you won't." She placed a final command into the system. A countdown began. Self-destruct initiated. 60 seconds. Daniel grabbed her hand. "Time to go!" They ran, through the burning halls past freed clones who looked around in confusion. Alarm screamed. Metal melted. They reached the Emberhawk just as the fortress erupted behind them. As the shockwave passed, silence returned to space. Inside the ship, Liari slumped into a seat, exhausted but free. Daniel sat beside her, breathing hard. She looked at him. "We did it." He smiled. "No, you did it." The stars were calm again. The Emberhawk sailed quietly through the dark stretch of space near the edge of the galaxy. Zorak's fortress was gone, reduced to stardust and broken metal. But the silence that followed was not empty. It was peaceful. Daniel stood alone in the cockpit, staring at the swirling cosmos. He wasn't used to peace. It felt strange. Like a moment that wasn't supposed to last. Behind him, soft footsteps echoed. Liari entered, wearing a simple white tunic now, not the torn dress from the auction. Her silver hair was clean and tied back, and the glow in her green eyes was softer, but still powerful. "You thinking again?" she asked gently. Daniel chuckled. "I do that sometimes." Liari smiled and stood beside him. "We're safe now." He nodded. For the first time in a long while, there was a long silence. Then Liari spoke quietly. "I dreamed of Earth last night." Daniel turned to her. "What did you see?" She closed her eyes. Mountains, trees, children running in a park. I heard birds. I felt the wind. It wasn't a memory in my code. It was something new, something real. Daniel smiled. "You'll see it for yourself one day." She looked at him. "With you?" He paused for a second. "If you want me there." Liari looked down. "I was made to belong to someone, but you never treated me like that. You let me choose." She looked up again, her voice steady. "So let me choose now." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Choose what?" Liari stepped closer, placed her hand over his. "I choose you." Daniel blinked, unsure if he heard her right. She nodded. "At that auction I was sold like an object. I was never asked what I wanted, but you looked at me and saw a person. You didn't buy me, Daniel, you freed me." He took her hand gently. "Larry, you don't owe me anything." "I know," she said. "And that's why this matters." Daniel was silent for a moment. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a small tag, the same one from the auction. "Funny thing," he said, smiling. "I never threw this away." Liari looked at it. Item number 438. Organic, alive, highly valuable. He held it up and pressed a button. The tag lit up and then dissolved into ash. "Last bidder," he said. "Just canceled the deal." Liari laughed, a real warm laugh. "Good." But, before they could say more, the AI interrupted. "Incoming transmission. Open?" Daniel and Liari exchanged a glance. "Let's hear it," he said. A hologram popped up, a figure in a black uniform. Human, from Earth. "Captain Daniel Reeve, this is Commander Asher of the Galactic Human Council. We've tracked your ship since it fled Zorak's compound. We've received the full signal package your AI transmitted. Is the girl safe?" Daniel stood straighter. "She's more than safe. She's alive. She's free. And she's not a threat, unless someone tries to cage her again." Commander Asher nodded slowly. "Understood. There's interest in her, in what she carries." Daniel stepped forward. "Then make one thing clear to Earth Command. She's not a specimen, She's not a tool. She's human enough to deserve a choice. Asher stared at him, then to their surprise he smiled. I agree. We'll await your arrival at Earth's border gate. She has much to teach us. The transmission ended. Layari looked surprised. That went better than I thought. Daniel shrugged. Maybe there's hope for humanity after all, she smirked. I've seen it, in you. They both sat at the console. Layari pointed at a blue dot on the map. That's Earth? Daniel nodded. Home. She smiled. Then let's go see what being human really feels like. And as the Emberhawk turned toward the blue planet in the distance, Layari leaned her head on Daniel's shoulder. Not as cargo, not as property, but as someone who had been sold once and now chose her own future. Together.